cottage on the outskirts of Brighton during the last several years, and Carla had behaved like a young schoolgirl whenever he was in town. When he'd stopped coming around, and they heard the rumors that he was courting an heiress in London, Gabrielle's mother had undergone a remarkable change. Overnight, she turned into a bitter woman, hating the world and everything in it, crying over a man who wasn't even hers. Whether he had made Carla promises, whether Carla had intended to divorce her husband, no one knew, but her heart seemed to have broken when Albert turned his attentions to another woman. She had all the signs of a woman betrayed, and when she took sick in early spring and her condition had worsened, she'd made no effort to recover from it, ignoring her doctor's advice and barely eating. Gabrielle was heartsick herself, having to watch her mother's decline. She might not have approved of her mother's obsession with Albert, or her unwillingness to try harder to save her marriage, but she still loved her mother deeply, and had done everything she could think of to cheer her up. She'd filled her mother's room with flowers that she scoured the neighborhood for, read to her mother aloud, even insisted their housekeeper, Marjorie, spend a good portion of her day visiting with her, since she was such a chatty woman and usually quite funny in her remarks. Marjorie had been with them several years at that point, middle-aged, with bright red hair, vivid blue eyes, and a host of freckles. She was opinionated, outspoken, and not at all awed by aristocrats. She was also a very caring woman, and had taken to the Brookses as if they were her own family. Gabrielle had thought her efforts were working, that her mother's will to live was returning. Her mother had even started to eat again and stopped mentioning Albert. So Gabrielle was devastated when her mother passed away in the middle of the night. Pined away, was Gabrielle's personal conclusion, because she'd been on the mend from her illness, though she would never mention that to her father. But her mother's death left Gabrielle feeling utterly alone. Although she'd been left a lot of money, since Carla had been quite well-to-do herself from a family inheritance, Gabrielle wouldn't see any of that money until she reached her majority at the age of 21, and that was a long way off. Her father did send funds regularly, and there was the household money that would last quite a while, but she'd just turned 18. She was also going to be turned over to a guardian. Carla's solicitor, William Bates, had mentioned it at the reading of the will. In her grief, she hadn't really paid attention, but when she'd been given the name, she was appalled. The man was a philanderer, and everyone knew it. The rumors were he chased his maids all over his house, and he'd even pinched Gabrielle's bottom once at a garden party, when she'd been only 15. A guardian, and him in particular, wouldn't do at all. She still had one parent living. She merely needed to find him, and so she set out to do just that. She'd had to conquer a few fears first, of sailing halfway around the world, of leaving behind everything she was familiar with. She'd nearly changed her mind twice, but in the end, she'd felt she'd had no choice, and at least Marjorie had agreed to go with her. The trip had gone very well, much better than she'd anticipated. No one had questioned her traveling with just her servant. She was under the captain's protection, after all, at least for the duration, and she had implied her father would be meeting her when they docked. Just a small lie to keep any concerns at bay. Now, thinking about her father and finding him only kept her current fears in check for a short while. Her legs had fallen asleep, curled into the barrel as she was. She'd had no trouble getting all of herself into the container. She wasn't a big woman at only 5'4", and was slender of frame. A splinter had pierced her back, though, when she'd scrunched down into the crate just before she'd pulled the lid back over it, and there was no way to reach it, even if she had enough room to try. And she was partly in shock that it was even possible for a ship to fly a Jolly Roger in this day and age. Pirates were supposed to be extinct. She had thought they had all been routed in the last century, either pardoned or hung. Sailing the warm Caribbean waters was supposed to be as safe as walking down an English country lane. If she hadn't been certain of that, she never would have booked passage to this side of the world. And yet, she'd seen the pirate flag with her own eyes.